And yet, she's ready for survival in only the most basic sense. If a predator were to walk through the delivery room door, Sarah couldn't get up and run to safety. She couldn't yet make the decisions to gather food,
Right.
work.
Go ahead and start, you bitch.
Mom, I'm recording for the book.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay, what are the first two words?
Bitch.
No. What are the first two words?
Velvet face.
The other order. What's the first word?
Face.
Okay, what's the second word?
Velvet.
Okay, thank you. What's the what's the third word? Don't say the third word yet, okay?
No, I won't.
To gather food, work, protect herself from the elements. That would preserve her life as an adult. So we're talking about a baby. She's not ready for survival. She's only ready for the survival in the most basic sense.
That's right.
Newborn Sarah couldn't do any of these things, in part because her cerebellum, responsible for balance, coordination, and eye movement, hasn't fully developed. And in part because the connections between the neurons elsewhere in her brain have not yet fully formed,
That's true.
making it impossible for messages to be smoothly passed or functions to be fully coordinated.
That's right.
Her brain at this point is a little like a city under construction.
Huh.
And
Terrible.
it's a baby. It's a baby's brain. And understanding how the city is built can shed light on how it can crumble or grow later in life. The brain's blueprint, cognicity. Cognicity. The brain can be thought of as a city made of neighborhoods of different sizes that are linked with each other by roads and highways.
That's right.
Let's imagine Sarah's developing brain as a collection of neighborhoods.
Right.
These are the lobes you'll just read about,
That's the best thing to do.
connected by a complex series of highways, boulevards, and small roads.
Right.
Well, we'll call it Cognicity. Eventually,
Cogni?
Cogni, like cognation or
Cogni City.
C-O-G-N-I, Cogni,
Cogni.
like cognitive.
Yes.
Eventually, the highways in Cogni City will be smooth and perfectly paved. All the better to whisk cars or messages, in this case, from point A to point B.
Right.
When Sarah's born, though, they're more like dirt roads connecting small towns, like in India.
That's right.
All those dirt roads they weren't small towns, they were big towns. Travel is neither quick nor easy. There's no stop signs, and there's no street lights, and there's traffic jams.
That's right.
That doesn't say that in the book. That's in part because the nerve fibers that will one day become the brain's highways have not yet been covered with myelin, a fatty white substance that sheaths the neuron's axon in much the same way insulation covers an electrical wire.
Oh.
When myelin develops in a process called myelination, it allows brain cells to pass electrical signals effectively and efficiently. Those messages travel down the axon on their way to the synapses as a series of signals, with each hopping further down in a process called saltatory conduction.
Oh boy.
Without myelin, this saltatory conduction requires a lot more energy to be expended by the neuron. And not only do unmyelinated axons expend more energy to do their work, they also do less stellar job of it. Some signals leak out of the unmyelated axon, never to be delivered at all. If myelation is not complete, some parts of Sarah's brain can't communicate well with the other parts, making complex movements harder.
That's what I did is wrong with me.
Well, we'll find out when we go to see Dr. Fatouhi. When we go to see Majid Fatouhi. We'll find out if that's what it is. Who knows?
Okay.
Maybe, we need to take some kind of, more, they mentioned some kind of, vitamin in here.
Really?
Yeah, I should probably look and see if I can get that vitamin.
That'd be a good one.
Where was that mentioned? Maybe in the front. Let's see. Introduction. No. Let's see. MRIs. Memory.
That's right.
Clarity. Creativity. There's that piece in here about there's a piece in here about some kind of stuff you can take. Let's see. Real age, fraying brain. That's Patui. This is 30% IQ. Fuzzy.
You got it.
30%. Boost your brain. I know what's in here. I remember it. I remember there's something in here. There was something in here about that. Maybe it was in the introduction. Could be in the introduction. Something like, oh, there it is right here. Brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF.
Oh, boy.
Maybe this is the protein that we need. Maybe we can get some of this at the over there at the health food store. Okay? So let's go back to chapter 1, where we were. And so that might help you. Who knows? You're already doing better. Let's just look at it that way, Mom. You're doing like 1,000 times better. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's see. If myelin is not completed, some parts of Sarah's brains can't communicate well with the other parts, making complex movements harder, if not impossible to pull off. Beyond the roads and neighborhoods have some development ahead of them as well. So the neighborhoods have some development ahead as well. They will grow most exclusively through the development of dendrites and axons. The two exceptions are the cerebellum and the hippocampus. The cerebellum isn't fully developed at birth and is one of the few parts of the brain that experience neurogenesis. The birth of new neurons after a child is born. So the cerebellum isn't fully developed at birth and is one of the few parts of the brain that experience neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons after a child is born. This happens throughout the first year of life. Incomplete development and incomplete myelination of the cerebellum mean a baby can't yet sit up or stand, or can only clumsily grasp a bottle. The hippocampus, too, is not yet fully myelinated, and will also experience neurogenesis, which, as we discussed throughout this book, lasts well beyond the first year and, in fact, into late life.
Right.
Still, these are the exceptions. In every other cognitive neighborhood, future development is tied to the creation of synapses rather than the birth of the new neurons. As her brain's highways and neighborhoods develop, Sarah's skills will begin to advance. While at birth, she could only detect light, a synapses from the fiber bundles myelinated, she'll be able to differentiate patterns and color in the things she sees. Before long, Sarah will be able to smile. Around 2-month mark, hold her head steady at 4 months, and sit without support in 6 months. And she will have her dimple back. And she will have her dimple back. Dimple. Dimple. Do you have your dimple back? By 1 year, she will most likely be able to stand and take a few steps. In the years ahead, Sarah will reach yet more milestones. By age 3 or 4, the areas of the brain responsible for memory will have begun to mature, meaning her earliest memories will stem from this age, and not before. By age 6 or 7, she'll likely be able to entertain abstract thoughts. By 8 or 9, she will almost certainly engage in more complex thinking. As Sarah grows, her brain will produce new connections and call those it doesn't need, shaping her brain in a process that continues until about the age of 20, or perhaps even later. The next section is, and it's done or not. So, recapping, it says that as Sarah grows, her brain will produce new connections and call those it doesn't need, shaping her brain in a process that continues until about the age of 20, or perhaps even later.